I want to thank all of you for being here. It looks as though this should have been done in the Siegel Center. And that's a good sign because this is a critically important discussion about life at our university. And I'm very grateful that so many of you are here and care about this discussion because it is an important conversation. And your presence really speaks to its importance, and I think is probably going to help us elevate a conversation that needs to happen. This is a community that I'm very proud of. We're a community that absolutely is committed to embracing diversity and inclusion, and of course the success of all of our people who are a part of our community. And we know we need to do more. So let's talk about why we're here. Last week, a very engaged, concerned, and also very thoughtful group of students began a conversation about their experiences at Virginia Commonwealth University. And I'm very proud of them for having the courage to elevate that conversation to the levels that they did. It followed, actually, that was exactly a week ago today at this very same time. And then the conversation followed a day or so later, where I had an opportunity to spend 2 hours with the same students talking with them and listening, more importantly, to their concerns. The concerns that were brought forward are very important concerns, and they're concerns that are important for every one of us. Because I do believe that we all have the same vision for VCU, and that is that everyone at Virginia Commonwealth University of any background can and will thrive and be successful. So while we've made significant progress toward that goal, I think I recognize more now than ever that we have a lot of work to do. And part of why we have a lot of work to do is because we have a lot of work to do together. And that's why we're here, because I've convened this forum to help shape and inform some of our next steps. I hope that we'll have an opportunity together today to listen to each other and to begin to think about how we're going to work more effectively to ensure that VCU is a place where anyone can and will thrive, will feel welcome, safe, that's an important word, safe, and fully supported. And of course, able to succeed in this environment because we have a very clear mission, and we know that the success of all of our people is at the center of it. I'm very pleased that Angelique Scott is here representing the group with whom I met of student leaders last week, and she is willing to speak in just a moment. I also want to note that we have members of our Board of Visitors here, and I'm very appreciative that they have taken the time to be here. This gives you some idea of the magnitude of the importance of this. I called upon them individually and asked them if they would be here, and I really appreciate their commitment to this important discussion today. And I want to ask them to identify themselves as I call their names. The rector of our Board of Visitors, John Luke, is here. If you'll all stand as I call your names. The vice rector of our board, Jackie Stone, is also here. Bill Ginther is another member of the Board of Visitors and the former rector. The Reverend Tyrone Nelson is here as well, one of our newest members. And Mike Frazier, a member of our Board of Visitors as well, is here. And I'm very grateful to you all for making the time to be here and helping to elevate this conversation to a level that will include you as a board and engage you as a board around a topic that this entire community believes is very important. I also want to recognize that I have asked many members of our cabinet, and please come up all the way, come all the way up, fill all these spaces. I don't have a problem with any of these spaces being filled, and get as comfortable as you can be. If you don't mind standing or sitting on the floor, whatever works for you, please. I'm sure the fire marshal's not very pleased at this point, but our provost, Gail Hackett, I've asked to be here, and I had an opportunity with Gail and with our vice president for inclusive excellence, who is also here, Wanda Mitchell. I met with them 2 days ago. Our Vice President for Health Sciences, Marcia Rapley, is already standing as she walks in, and I'm glad to see her here as well. Our other academic officer of the university, particularly for health sciences. And you know, it's really critical, and I want to get into this a little bit later, that our faculty is engaged in this conversation, because one of the important points that our students have made is that we need more black faculty, and I agree with that. I have called for that, and I need our faculty's support for that. And so I have asked Holly Alford, who is our president of the Faculty Senate, to also be here. Would you mind raising your hand and being recognized, Holly? And thank you for also making time. So we are a community, and we talk about this all the time from this podium and from our website and all the places from which I speak, that has long been tied to diversity, and that has been good. And we're generally known as a place that's welcoming and values the differences among our people. And I also ask, you always hear me say, I want all of our people, our students, our faculty members, our staff members, our alumni, I want all of us to be leaders in our communities, all of our people. But let's just face it, we have a lot of work to do. And until we are able to elevate a conversation like this to this level, we aren't going to get done the things that we need to get done. So we're going to continue this discussion today, building on our town hall of last year. You might remember it, in a much smaller room. And today we're in a much larger room, but it's obvious that we could use even more space. So that means that you have helped elevate this conversation, and I'm very, very pleased for that. I want you to know that I think that Black Lives Matter. I think it's very important. It's an important part of the discussion, and that's what that means, that this is an important discussion. There have been a number of questions that our students have raised, and they're very important in light of that reality. And one of the things that we shared is a common sense that racism still does exist. It is a problem. It is a serious problem. And it gets in the way of all of the ideals that we all share with each other about being together, living together, embracing each other, ensuring each other's success. And we need to deal with it. And if you can't deal with it at a research university where our mission is to embrace everyone, at least we say that, then where else can you deal with it? We need to have these conversations. It's important to engage right now as part of what is a national conversation about what it's like to be black in America. We need to have that conversation, and we really need to be thoughtful about it, and we need to be sincere about it, and we need to be sincere about improving all of our experiences. I have called for more underrepresented faculty of color, and I will continue to do so, and I will continue to hold my leadership team accountable to ensure that this does happen. Accountability is absolutely essential for this to be real, and I appreciate the students who brought these thoughts forward, and I'm grateful that they are very thoughtful indeed about these issues. Though I want to say it is not the responsibility of these students, it's all of us that have to take responsibility for this. At VCU, we have students who are committed to a better university more than just in words. They want to see a more just world. Our students understand that they envision a change that will not necessarily just benefit them, but the people who will follow them. And that tells you a lot about our students. And frankly, I think a lot of the things that we've talked about in just a week's time aren't enough. We have so much more that we have to talk about in order to ensure that we truly are able to institutionalize what we know is right, what we know is right for all human beings. We also have to acknowledge that there are other underrepresented groups whose voices need to be heard and whose needs need to be addressed. We have Latinos, we have Native Americans, we have lots of other folks who need to be a part of this conversation and whom I want to benefit from our efforts. We also need to identify and respect that there are many people who identify themselves in multiple ways, and we need to be respectful of that and acknowledge that. Because if diversity and inclusion are truly values at this institution, and they are, we have the prerogative to say so and to do so, then they must permeate every single part of our big university. And this is a large place that has taken great pride in its ability to do so well in each one of its areas. But we need to also do well and exercise our prerogative to share values across the entire institution. And that's part of what I'm going to do with this presidency, is to help ensure that that happens. And I'm going to do it by convincing everyone who's a part of this university community that we must embrace the kind of diversity that we talk about. We need to talk about our curriculum. We need to talk about our hiring. We need to talk about keeping people who we do hire. We need to talk about human health. We need to talk about the business decisions that we make. Just think about all the people involved in all of those areas that I just outlined. Inclusion has to matter everywhere, not just among our students, not just among our faculty, but everywhere at VCU. Everywhere where we have staff, everywhere where we have visitors, everywhere where we have patients whose lives depend on us. If it weren't for VCU, those lives might not even exist. And I'm very proud of that. Diversity is not going to be at VCU a tagline or boilerplate. It means an honest commitment that shows up everywhere at this institution. My vision is a culture in which all of our diverse people, all of our human beings will be embraced. And we need to do more in order to ensure that that vision becomes a reality. We must have a culture in which we truly understand each other, where we listen to each other, and we respect our unique experiences. We do not all come from the same places, and we need to acknowledge that, and we need to learn from each other on that. And we've got to leverage these opportunities we have being together in this large community to learn. Isn't that what we are? We're an educational environment where we are here to discover, to inquire, and to really understand, like so many people in so many other organizations just simply cannot. As members of the same community, we've got to come together to know each other better and to trust each other more. And trust takes hard work. It's not natural, unfortunately. And it can't be natural when a lot of the things that happen. I don't like that. I wish trust were easier, but we have to work on it. And when trust bonds are broken or they're strained, we've got to work hard at figuring out how to repair them. Without trust, we cannot work toward common goals or even have the difficult conversations that we need to have in order to be sure that we can move forward. And we know one thing about trust. It happens over time, and it takes experience with each other in order to make sure that it happens. And we've got to work at it. And you know, among all the things that we share as human beings, one of the things that we know most about each other is when we really mean it and when we really don't. Right? We know that. We get that. And so we just got to be real about that and honest about that. And if you're a part of the Virginia Commonwealth University community, I'm telling you, I'm asking you that you must be committed to the advancement of all human beings. That is a prerogative that we can call for, particularly with those who are part of our team, the people who we employ. We've got to be absolutely certain that everything we say about everyone's success can be a reality. Our students' voices are powerful, but again, they cannot be the only ones in this conversation. I told our students last week, as I sat with them in my office, I'm so glad that you have elevated this conversation to the level that it's come, because now we might be able to get everyone to listen. And no, this isn't just about students. It's about us as a faculty as well. It's about us as a staff as well. Are we doing all of the right things in all of the right areas? I'm not so sure. We need to all ask ourselves about that. We've got to be certain that everyone can be successful. I'm so glad all of you are here, and I really appreciate that. At this point, I want to invite Angelique Scott to please come forward and make an opening statement. And then what we'll do is engage all of you in a conversation. So Angelique, if you will kindly.
Good afternoon. I would like to invite all of the organizers and all of the Black student leaders to come up and stand with me. This was a collective effort, so. I first wanted to thank the Office of the Presidency for allowing us to come over here and make a statement. And I wanted to thank you, Dr. Rao, for opening. So now I'm going to read a statement that was prepared by all of us. Okay. Last week, a small group of Black student leaders and student activists came together to organize a demonstration. The demonstration was organized by Black students here at Virginia Commonwealth University in an effort to stand in solidarity with our Black family at the University of Missouri. We watched the news and on social media as our Black family at the University of Missouri were consistently dismissed and denied a safe space where they could thrive academically or even live. Their fear was a result of racial terror inflicted on them at the university and was casually dismissed by the university administration. We here at VCU could not sit and watch as Black students, just like us, suffered at the hands of their university, turning a blind eye to their suffering. Black students at Mizzou are currently experiencing could someday be VCU if further taken in resolving many of the issues here at VCU that present a clear and present danger to Black students. While VCU's racial tensions are not at their highest, and while we are not experiencing the explicit terrorism the Black students at the University of Missouri are currently experiencing, VCU has failed Black students on many levels. We are tired of hearing about old initiatives and that have never set into action, given measurable outcomes or accountable deadlines. VCU has been very slow to take action, and that needs to change. We want action taken now. The concerns and experiences of Black students here at VCU should be a priority. We will no longer be pushed to the side. We matter. Even with the steps VCU has taken, Black faculty and students have not been prioritized. With VCU's drive to become a more diverse university, it has shown that diversity does not include Blackness. Over the past 7 years, Black faculty have declined by 22%. The state of Black faculty and Black students here at VCU should be treated like what it is. It is a crisis. This is not the first time these issues and grievances have been brought to the attention of the administration here at VCU. Black VCU Speaks is a group of students only reiterating the work that has been done in the past to bring light to the issue. Last year, the African and African American Empowerment Project, otherwise known as ASHE, brought similar issues to VCU's administration, and no action has been taken. In ASHE's grievances, students spoke of specific experiences where they could blatantly see they weren't valued or treated equally to their white peers. Students brought to attention experiences where during a class they could see how Blackness was completely excluded or brought up minimally when lessons were taught. Black students talk about how within their time here at VCU, they have been deprived of chance of being taught by a Black professor unless they were in the African American Studies department. The Black Education Association, also known as the BEA, brought out a snapshot last year with startling statistics. Black teaching and research faculty comprise only 4.7% of VCU compared to the 74% of white faculty. The Black student to Black teacher ratio here at VCU is 45 Black students to 1 Black teacher. All students to a Black professor is 300 to 1, while all students to a white professor are 17 to 1. We need VCU to end its search for cosmetic diversity and work towards real diversity. When we talk about Black Lives Mattering, we aren't just referring to police brutality, but the Black Lives Mattering in academia, students and faculty alike. At this day and age, we shouldn't be fighting for a place at the table. The demands weren't created by Black VCU Speaks won't just enhance the college experience for Black students, but enhance the experience for students and faculty alike. Okay. Currently, the diversity training for faculty is optional. This should be mandatory, and a conversation on Black term faculty and tenure track needs to be had immediately. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Angelique. At this point, what I'd like to do is take some questions, take advice, hear from all of you who are here. And we would love to hear from any of you on any perspective. Yes.
Hello, Dr. Rao. Thank you for having this. I'm Gaynell Sherrod, Chair of Dance and Choreography. And I just want to say thank you to the courageous students who just came forward. I have much to say, but I'm going to keep it very brief. In this conversation, we're looking at several things, but the two opposing polarities that we're trying to bring together is unpacking oppression and unpacking privilege. I have to unpack oppression in order to survive. My white counterpart does not have to unpack privilege. My white counterpart does not have to unpack privilege, and they will be just fine. Because even if they did, there's a system that still supports whoever they are, whatever they bring. But I have to unpack oppression. I have to understand all of the dynamics in order to survive. And that's what we need to talk about. That system that keeps the ability for someone who does not necessarily have to unpack privilege, because they don't have to, because the system still supports what they do and what they bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaynell. Thank you, Gaynell. And Faith?
Good afternoon. My name is Faye Belgrave, and I'm president of the BEA, Black Educators Association. If I could have all members of BEA stand, please. So you may sit. So consistent with what's been said before, we commend Black VCU Speaks and students at other universities for bringing their voice to the lack of diversity of Black faculty and cultural competency at VCU and other universities. A university that values diversity and inclusion has to be inclusive of everyone. The lack of Black faculty has been a long-standing concern of the BEA. Over the past 3 years, BEA has had several meetings with several administrators to voice our concern about what we call a crisis, and that was alluded to today. We agree with Black VCU Speaks that this crisis has not been adequately addressed with the urgency required. We believe, given VCU's historical mission and current status, there is an opportunity to show leadership in addressing this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Faith. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Takara Felix. I am a former student at VCU, and I'd like to thank you, Dr. Rao. I think you answered the question in how to fix a problem like this, to engage in the problems that matter, not just oppress them, not just hide them, and becoming individual leaders as well in our community. So VCU as a whole, we're all leaders. When we step outside of VCU, we wear VCU on our shoulders, so to speak. So to reach out into our community, and working as a team with the Black faculty, I could count on one hand how many Black professors I've had. I went here for 6 years. I graduated with 2 degrees, and I've had Black professors I could count on one hand, and that is an issue. Thank you, Miss Angelique Scott. I like your comment on cosmetic diversity versus real diversity. And not only does VCU as a community that we have to address the problems with the Black community, but we should also be aware of all the problems that we have in other communities versus other ethnic backgrounds and religious backgrounds as well. So thank you, and my question would be as when? I feel like you didn't answer that. When would this happen? What are the deadlines for this?
So it's a good question. And as you know, the question with respect to when, I don't know if all of you heard that. When is yesterday, in that obviously the urgency is more serious than I think some might grasp. I created specifically the position of Vice President for Inclusive Excellence to help focus on and guide us through the entire cabinet in a number of ways. And so what Wanda Mitchell is doing specifically is focusing on a strategic action plan that is supposed to help us address diversity. Now, when I say supposed to, I mean a lot of it's going to take a lot of engagement from throughout the institution. There are some things that have happened, and I would be putting these folks in the front row down if I didn't tell you about some of the things that are going on. One example is I Cubed, which is inclusion, inquiry, and what's your other I? Innovation. And the progress that Ashir Nassim has made is just tremendous in a very short period of time. You started only July, and the progress already has been tremendous just in terms of focusing on our ability to look at research institutes and centers, our ability to focus on cluster hires that bring us the opportunity to hire more than just one person when we have the opportunity to do that. The Champions Initiative in the Provost's office has also been very effective. There are 40 champions, almost 40 champions, who have now been trained, and there are 700 of our faculty members since 2013 who have gone through a more general level of training. The champions are going to be very, very important. To get the kind of change that you need, you cannot just simply hope for it. You cannot tell people what to do. In an institution this large, control exists at lots of levels. Responsibility, hopefully, will exist more at those levels than it has in the past. And so in 2016, specifically, we have identified as our date spring. I don't know if, Wanda, you have a particular time in the spring, that in May of 2016 that the action plan will come forth. It will identify a number of initiatives. One of those will be around an ombudsperson, and I think that is an important initiative. It's something that has been a part of our thinking for quite some time now. Another is around safe spaces. I think safe spaces are lacking. I will tell you that spaces are generally lacking at VCU, but safe spaces in particular we need to address. Now, when it comes to curriculum, one of the reasons that I mentioned to you earlier that I invited Holly as president of the Faculty Senate to be here is to help guide us in the conversation. Now, as faculty, how many faculty members like to be told what to teach? or told who to hire. And remember, this is where a lot of this centers. We're not going to push it off to that. I'm going to keep talking until we get results, and I assure you of that. But we need to bring people along. And how we do that most effectively is going to be about how you do that. Telling people what to do and forcing them might get you the results you don't want. And so it is going to be important for us to engage with the faculty, predominantly through the Faculty Senate, to talk about curricular changes, and of course, through the provost and the faculty, talk about how we're going to hire and what we're going to do. Remember, there are lots of things that we can do and some things that we can't do. We do have the prerogative to say and to become a more diverse faculty. We do, and we can. How that happens, however, is a really important part of how we get there, or whether we get there at all. And so those are just a few of the initiatives, but let me just mention one other thing that has to happen. One other thing that became very clear to me as I had an opportunity to meet with our students last week is communication is a very serious problem, and we need to work on it. It's very obvious that we have not achieved the kind of communication that we need to achieve. I don't know that we are developing a network around all of the things that we are doing to communicate those to people or individuals. Some may be cynical about some of those, but it'd be nice if we know that people know what's actually happening before we have any confirmation of any cynicism. Because the work that my colleagues are doing, I find to be very compelling in many ways, impelling in many ways. And so it's going to be important for us to, frankly, get a better sense of what's working and what's not, and to focus on the things that are working and to prioritize those and move forward with those with clearer timelines and better communication around those timelines. The other focus that we talked about just in a meeting that we've had recently is how we're going to communicate and with which populations, because populations are all different on campus, largely by generation, maybe even by status, meaning whether you're a faculty member or whether you are a staff member or whether you are a student. And we need to be certain that we are connecting with everyone who receives information the ways in which they need to receive it. And we will do our best at it, but it's going to take some time. And as this rolls out, and as I said, part of what I wanted today to do is to help inform where we head and to help us prioritize, because if you can't do everything, and of course no institution can do quote unquote everything, right, that everyone comes up with. On the other hand, what do you choose to do and why? Well, the why for us is going to be informed, hopefully, and shaped by what we're able to gather from our colleagues, from our students, and of course from others who can give us best practice information. Yeah. Okay, hang on just one second.
Dr. Rao, I'm going to jump in right quick, right here.
Yes.
Really quickly, I remember when I was an undergrad here at this university, I came back on a Monday morning to class, and all the students in my classroom were talking about the cookout they had went to at the professor's house. I didn't know about the cookout, wasn't invited to the cookout, knew nothing about the cookout. I felt marginalized at that point as a student. I realized that things were a little different for me. Fast forward now, I'm an adult, I'm a faculty member here at VCU. There are still times I feel marginalized. I served on the board of directors here for the Alumni Association. I think our voice has been marginalized now. The voice of the black alumni through underlying decision making has been weakened. I've taken part of the diversity trainings and some of the other initiatives that you referred to. And I think that that this is a great opportunity here, but we've got to make sure that the conversations are real and people are willing to have the difficult discussions, because what happens is you leave these trainings, everybody feels good about it, they go back to their search committees, et cetera, and it doesn't translate into action. And so people have to be willing to look each other in the eye and be honest about it and not feel pressured by the realities of our teaching and research missions, the things that we have to do that impact the energy that we have, all right, to focus on the things that really matter. And so if we're going to have this conversation, we've got to be real about it.
Thank you, Frank.
Hi, everyone. I have something to say. After last week, I saw a lot of comments that people posted how people felt about us standing up for what we believed in. And one that really stood out was people were saying, oh, VCU is not HBCU. We are not trying to turn VCU into an HBCU. However, we want people to have a full experience of what the real world is like. When you come to college, you are supposed to transform and change, and you cannot do that if you only have a big amount of staff that only have one perspective to give you. We are trying to make sure that you're getting your money's worth when you come to VCU. Make sure that you can, as a student, learn as much as you possibly can from diverse staff that have different perspectives, because one person's experience might be different from another's, and that is why we are pushing for this. This is not just for Black VCU. This is for all of VCU to honestly get something good out of coming to VCU. And I have one more thing to say. I know VCU, compared to other schools, has done a lot, but at the same time, we're comparing ourselves to nothing. So, of course, we have done a lot. So I just want to say that.
Hello? So I want to talk to you from the entire faculty perspective, VCU Faculty Senate, the faculty, okay? If you all are not aware, January 27, 2015, this year, we passed a resolution asking that the decline of Black faculty be a priority at VCU. That was passed unanimously, okay? We asked for strategies, we asked for results in terms of recruitment and retention of Black faculty, and we asked for it by August. Now, I have been working with the administration, with the provost, etc., on those, what those strategies are, etc. I think one of the biggest problems that we have right now at this university is this communication gap. Like, I've talked to Angelique, and Angelique was like, I didn't know that was going on. I didn't know about this. I didn't know about that. There's a communication problem that we need to deal with as well in terms of informing not only our faculty sometimes as a whole, but our students as well, so that they can have input in some of these things that we are doing. And that's my comment.
Yeah. We'll come right back.
Thank you, President Rao. I'll be very brief. As you know this, during Black History Month and MLK Day, right, we all come together and rah-rah ourselves and pat ourselves in the back, right? But I will give you one quote that I think is important for the administration and folks who are paid to do this work to remember us. Dr. King said in a Testament of Hope speech that we do not have the luxury, right, of a leisurely approach to urgent solutions. And so one question that I have is about your how question. I want to push you a bit on that, and in terms of hiring of faculty members in departments. So I'm here, brand new. Been here since August. I'm in political science. I'm here as a faculty member, associate professor, because, though, of some of the goodwill of folks that I work with and my colleagues. Unfortunately, not every department, honestly, is like that, right? And you know that, and the rest of us know that here too. So how do you, knowing that we can't tell other faculty, right, what to do, what to teach, who to hire, how do you, as a AAEEO institution, where, assuming that all things being equal, if you have a person of color, if you have a woman in the pool, we are obligated legally, if we want to continue to get financial federal support, right, to actually bring them in. And yet we don't, and we allow departments to continually pass on that obligation. How do you require departments to do that when we know that that's actually not happening?
Several ways. One is, I do think that hiring champions, or training champions and putting them all over the university does help with creating an awareness of that. So, is what you're talking about overt or covert, or maybe intentional? For most, they would say intentional. And so there does have to be a raised awareness. So, I can talk with you about a lot of things that you could do that they all have to be legal, let me put it that way, right? But there are lots of things that happen that aren't probably as legal as they should be, and they're unintentional. We need to catch those things, stop those things from occurring, and ensure that there is the kind of of commitment at every level that you can possibly get it. So I think the champions will help. I think the cluster hirings will help. I think more oversight is going to help. One of the things that VCU needs to do is to develop a much stronger human resources structure that represents all of VCU. That's part of the problem, is that so much of what's been done has been done by units, in my opinion, without as much oversight or structure as the university needs to insist upon. And some people aren't going to like it. But we will ensure that what we do is legal that way. We will ensure that what we do is truly equitable and reflects from my podium or Gail's podium or Marcia's podium or Wanda's podium what we say as an institution we really stand for. And we do need to hold accountable not just Wanda, me, not just Wanda, not just Gail, not just Marcia. I need to also be sure that they then hold deans accountable and that deans also get measured based on whether the chairs are actually held accountable, associate deans or associate chairs in large departments who might have responsibility for ensuring the oversight of those committees and those activities. No committee from this point onward should be off on its own doing its own thing without oversight to ensure that we are truly everything that we say, particularly equitable, right? And so if there is indeed a situation in which someone does not get interviewed, I would like to hope, although I can't necessarily count on this, that one person on that committee would say, how is it that we passed over her or him? How is it? Because I have an indication that that would be an enhancement to the university. In this environment, that person needs to be able to go to the provost or to the vice president for health sciences and say, I think something's wrong. And we have it absolutely, 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 without question, even if they are untenured. And remember, we also have opportunities that are a little more, or a little less threatening perhaps, with the hotline. Should you be reporting those things? Yes. Do people all use the hotline? No. Do they need to? I think it would help us. So, but part of what I need is for all of us to elevate this conversation to a level where if you get picked to be on a search committee, you say, okay, I've been picked to be on a search committee after these conversations that this place has been having. I better be good and sure that I can do what I need to do to be sure that this is legal, equitable, and truly is committed from our hearts to advancing diversity at this institution, because today we do have a problem. We do have a problem. We don't have the kind of diversity in our faculty that we need. And so you've now given me an opportunity to make this speech again, which I hope reaches the ears of every one of my faculty member colleagues who are out there. And some won't be influenced by it, but will there be more watchers on than ever? Absolutely. And that's how it happens. So thanks for your question. And then, yes, Angelique?
I just have a really quick, okay. Hi again, everyone. So my question / comment, I have two. One is going to be on, while we're talking about the hiring of black faculty, that is amazing. We need black hiring of faculty, but I also want to talk about the retention and keeping them here and tenuring them. Currently, we only have 48 black tenured faculty. And so I think it's a great dialogue to say, hey, we need more black faculty, but then we need to figure out how to keep them here and how they make them so they want to stay here.
Can I speak to that?
Oh, God. You got it?
Oh, it seems like...
Wait. Last one. Okay. And so then I also wanted to talk about the consequences for, okay, so right now the diversity and inclusivity training is optional for teachers. That needs to be mandatory, but I also want to talk about what are the repercussions for the teachers, like he said, leave that training and continue to be blatantly racist in class, continue to be blatantly dismissive of racist comments in class, who don't take away anything from that training. What are those consequences going to be? And then I want to pass it to her because she has to go off what I want to say.
Like specifically, I know one professor I ever spoke with who dealt with the things that we're speaking about, Dr. Lomax, like amazing professor. Probably like many students in here can contest. Like, look, Dr. Lomax is amazing. We had her in GSEC's and she was awesome. She left in 2013, resigned in 2013 for sexism within the FM department. Then she resigned again last year just because, number one, like, VCU wasn't valuing her as a black woman in academia. Like, all that she had to offer to the table, VCU still didn't want to give her the money that she deserved as a black woman who has her own website, who has her own organization, who goes around the country and gives keynote speeches. Like, VCU doesn't, VCU are not, like, VCU not valuing black faculty, so how can we say that we want black faculty here when we're not valuing what they had to bring to the table?
Hey, I kind of want to challenge the communication gap a little bit because that was brought up. I feel like if conversations have had in the past about things like this, I would just like to have an answer on to how do you feel you've improved from the past if these are conversations that have already happened?
Well, that's what I outlined in answer to the question earlier, is some of the things that we have been able to do in terms of the champions, for instance, who are specifically, all 39, who have a specific role, which is to go out and focus on hiring to ensure many of the things that I just talked about. So there's that. The creation of the I cubed, which is inclusion, innovation, and inquiry. I think that those things are making a difference, but obviously they haven't made all of the difference that they need to yet. And I'm not here to tell you that we are where I want us to be by any means, because as you say, VCU, isn't doing this or that. It's absolutely right, because VCU is a lot of people, and the idea behind what I'm doing is, having been around a while, one of the things I know is that getting people to do what you want them to do in large crowds means, to a large extent, selling them on doing what's right. And, I think there are a lot of times when I, as a student, would look at a president and think, why don't you just make that happen? Why don't you just authoritatively just do the right thing and say, make that happen? Well, I'd like to be able to do some of that, believe me. It would be much easier for me. However, I have to engage a faculty senate. I have to engage my faculty colleagues specifically through the provost, the vice president for health sciences, the vice president for inclusive excellence, and the deans through them, and the chairs through them, and of course continue to raise the level of oversight so that people become much more sensitive about what we need to do. It's the result that's going to matter. Programs will help to some extent, but if they're overlays and people ignore them, it doesn't make any difference. To be very candid with you, one of the most important things that's happening is this conversation, because this will elevate people's awareness and hopefully help them, them being the entire university community. A lot of people have a lot of power around here to absolutely help us do what we need to make happen. So in terms of the stuff that has happened, not as much as I would like. Not nearly as much as I would like, but there is a communication gap, and I know it exists, and it needs to improve, and we are working on that. In fact, I spent an entire morning talking with my team about part of what's going on is that people aren't aware of what's going on, and we need to find the right ways to reach the right people, and you don't reach all people in the same ways. If we tweet about something, I can assure you there are a lot of people who will never know what happened. If we send an email out, there are most people who won't know what happened, right? We send paper out, almost no one anymore will know what happened, right? So we've got to figure out, by the way, we decided we are going to use some paper at some points because there are some of us who are senior who might still use paper, and we're going to hope to reach them as well. But we are going to try everything that we possibly can. But I'm not going to stand here and tell you everything that I want to see happen has happened, because everything that I want to happen is far from happened. But I do think we will make progress. And again, this will help. Yes.
Dr. Rao.
We have a question.
Through Twitter.
Okay.
So one here, how to reconcile budgets with hiring goals.
How do you reconcile budgets with hiring goals? Well, You know, again, VCU's historical approach, which has been to take whatever we had one year and pass it on to the next year, probably isn't sustainable. We do need a model, ultimately, that the faculty and our administrators get together and agree helps us to allocate resources to the right priorities. The board and I have been talking about this for years. It's an important implementation that, again, I hope this conversation elevates to the right level so that we are able to develop a budget that will probably make a lot of people mad, because when you are developing a budget model, you are taking money away from all the places where it used to go and starting to move it to the places where you say with your mouth the priorities exist. And of course, it takes into consideration performance. And one element of performance will be, without question, what I hold our team accountable for, including with respect to diversity in the outcomes.
We have a lot of questions over here.
Yes.
Hi, President Rao. My name is Dr. Rowena Briones. I'm an assistant professor in the Robertson School of Media and Culture. And I just want to make 2 points. Number one, with the communication gap, I'm a professor of public relations. I have students in my classes, they're here today, that are passionate. They are really they're really fired up about this issue. So if you need help with communication, I'm sure there are plenty of students, shameless plug, shout out to my PR students, that can help you with this. Got a little digital activist here. Secondly, I just want to make a point to what was said in terms of hiring and retaining faculty of color. As a first generation American, one thing that drew me to VCU was the diversity of the students. I love my students here. My students are why I come to work every day, a huge part of why I'm here. But with that said, as an untenured junior faculty member, I do feel obligated and have a responsibility to mentor and guide my students, including and especially undergraduate and graduate students of color. And as for me, as an untenured junior faculty member, I'm getting burnt out, quite frankly. And thank you. And I just wanted to say, I tweeted this out. I heard y'all. There was a collective when you talked about retaining faculty of color, because this is the reality. This is the issue. And I know that in terms of hiring and search committees and bringing us here, that's one thing. And I know you mentioned these programs, but is there anything else? Is there any type of resource or any type of support that can help us? Because obviously I want to guide and help my students, but at the same time, I'm just one person. And I know my colleagues, my faculty colleagues of color will support me in this notion. So that's my comment. Thank you.
And let me just respond to that, if I could. Let me just respond and say, yes, there does need to be something more. There absolutely does need to be something more than just programs to support. And the burnout point has come up many, many times, noted again, and we do need to deal with it. And the other burnout point is my colleagues who say, I'm always the quote unquote, and I'm quoting someone here, the token member of that committee. And I can't serve on every committee every time. And so that's part of why we do need to have champions. And quite candidly, I was at a meeting yesterday, 2 days ago, and in which I spoke at a forum, a national forum, with a group of folks who were talking about this very issue. And one of the professors who was part of this panel, actually he was our moderator, he made a good point. He said, you know, one of the things that really impacts diversity hiring more than anything is when you actually have a senior committed majority member who is advocating for true diversity. And so we need to be thinking about those kinds of things. And that's exactly what the provost has been doing with the identification of senior faculty members as champions. I wanted to say one other thing that Angelique talked about. I think you talked about it, Angelique, and that is our students came to talk with me and opened their hearts up and talked about some very painful experiences. And I will just simply tell you that I heard lots of descriptions of very insensitive things that are being said, including by my colleague professors, about student work, or the absence of comments because they don't know what to do with varying perspectives. that might come up based on a student's background and the student's desire to express herself or himself based on that background. And I will tell you that they disturb me. I have lots of indication from our students, and it wasn't just this meeting with students. And I will tell you that cultural competency must be a priority in this strategic action plan. And if you choose to be a part of the Virginia Commonwealth University community, cultural competency has to be one of your assets. And that's another thing that no matter who we hire anywhere, we need to be looking for as well. So I just wanted to make that quick comment. And I know there are quite a number of folks who want to.
I'll go next, Dr.
Yes, we'll go back over here.
Dr. Rao, good afternoon.
We have.
I'm going to go ahead and,
yeah, go ahead.
so on the behalf of the Muslim Students Association and just the Muslim community here in Richmond and, and on VCU's campus, in the wake of the horrific attacks that have taken place in Paris and then across the world in Lebanon, in Egypt, and Saudi, I come to you as a representative of the Muslim community. One of our concerns is that there is a growing rhetoric of Islamophobia throughout the nation, throughout the communities, and as students, specifically people who display their faith very visually, for hijabis, for niqabis, for anyone. Whoever identifies themselves as Muslims, we do have a concern that of our safety and whether or not our opinions and our voices are going to be heard regarding countering this rhetoric of Islamophobia. As organizations on campus, we work really, really hard to fight this. And we will condone violence as much as we can, but we do need faculty members and members like yourself and discussions like this to back us up. Because personally, this is my second year on VCU's campus, and I chose to come to VCU because of the diversity and the growing Muslim community on campus and in the welcoming feel. But I do believe that I haven't really seen much faculty conversation or professors backing us up, and saying that, yeah, you guys are right. Or when a comment is made in class, where I know a lot of other students face this, professors don't really say anything, and that one Muslim kid sitting in that class is left by themselves to sit there and defend the 1.6 billion Muslims out there, And even though we'll do so happily. We'll do so happily. We have no problem representing the moderates or the well-practicing Muslim people out there. We would appreciate faculty members also, having our backs, or maybe just basically saying, you know what, this conversation is out there, but opinions are opinions, but when the line is crossed of being disrespectful or being hurtful, that's where it needs to be addressed and stopped. And that's all I ask. And I, as a representative of the entire Muslim community here in Richmond on the VCU campus. Thank you.
Nakina, you had a question, and then we have a commitment through the hour, and so I'm going to ask Nakina's comment to be the last one for this particular session.
I do want to address the students' comments about our safety for Muslim students. I would like to have that addressed in my answers as well. There are just a few things I'd like for you to give consideration to as we're thinking about new priorities under diversity. I've been at VCU for about 8 years, and in that time I've seen changes to our budget models, I've seen changes to our strategic plans, and I've seen a change from a shift and thinking about ourselves as a teaching university into a research one institution. That's all happened in a matter of 8 years. At no point in that conversation have phrases such as, it's going to take time, comments such as, I've only been here for X number of days or X number of years, conversations about, we'll get to this as soon as we can, it's a priority, but without time frames and consideration. So I would like to encourage the university and our senior administrators to give as much credence and as much time and consideration and thought into investing in diversity as much as we've invested in these other university shifts. I'm a public administrator, and I teach my students about public policy, and the first thing that I tell them is about, we understand public policy is related to the budget. And so when we think about implementation of policies and when we think about where our money goes, we have to be strategic. Otherwise, these things are unfunded mandates. So when we think about offices such as the Division of Inclusive Excellence, such as offices like OMSA, let's think about the budgets and the resources that we're pulling into those units and making sure that they are able to do the jobs that they need to do effectively and strategically. And lastly, we have this, and we refer to I-cubed a lot today, and I think one of the things that we have to think about, we went through an entire process last year of changing our T&R process, and we're thinking about I-cubed now. I-cubed, a lot of what's going on with I-cubed is really about a kind of grassroots, let's get in the community and really bring the people here who understand research in our communities. Our T&R model has to follow what I-cubed is doing. Otherwise, retention of these faculty, once they get here, will not work. Lastly, in all of this, we can't be concerned about diversity with our faculty and students if we are also not considering diversity of staff. There are a high number of people of color marginalized in our classified staff positions. There are a high number of women marginalized in our classified staff positions. I know we're creating opportunities theoretically and in our policies, but it's got to be where the rubber meets the road. We have to respect our classified staff. We've got to do more for our classified staff and getting them engaged in this university enterprise.
And Nikina, one of the things that I appreciate about your raising the kinds of things that you did is that you're not only as a member of the team at VCU raising the problem, but I also heard some solutions, and I appreciate those, and those do need to be taken into consideration. And we want more solutions because I cannot underscore enough that this is a community of people, all of whom have a tremendous amount of power. And your power engages when you make a difference as well. And so this is by no means the end of a conversation. It is really the beginning. And I again thank our students who helped lead us in this conversation for raising the kinds of points that they did that are very real and are very important and have touched our hearts. And I look forward to this kind of engagement. Next time we're going to have a much larger place in which to gather and talk about next steps. I will be communicating following this meeting, preferably before Thanksgiving break, where we are going and where we will be headed and with which specific initiatives. We do need change, and part of what I hope to accomplish more than anything today is through your engagement in that change. It is going to take our entire community to affect the kind of change that we need. Do I think it will all happen overnight? No, but do I think it's been catalyzed at this point? I absolutely do, and I appreciate the elevation to which we find ourselves having this conversation. Thank you all for gathering together, and I look forward to getting together again soon.